So is it warming in the area of the Petermann Glacier?
Yes, it is warming, but I think that's not the story in Petermann Fjord. The story in Petermann Fjord is that the interactions of the ocean with the ice, that's the big story. And kind of if someone, I'm dealing with students, I'm educating students all the time. If a student comes to me and I'm asking him, why is it doing what it is? And I'm expecting him to understand it, or I want to teach him to understand it. I'm asking questions. I sometimes ask challenging questions. I sometimes create counterpoints. If all he has to do in order to pass muster to say this is global warming,
no,
I'm not asking.
Enough. I'm not asking for you to say that, but I'm asking you. So it is warming, though, in the Petermann Fjord.
But I believe the warming, the local warming in and by itself is not important. That's not causing concern to me. What's causing concern to me is that we stop striding to understand any system.
No, I appreciate that, and that's what I'm trying to do. But has there been a reduction net in the amount of ice in the Petermann Fjord?
To the best of the knowledge, with the data that we have in hand, which admittedly is very limited, the answer to that is no. Actually, what we don't know about Petermann Fjord is we don't have, together with these with these extreme events that occur every 25 or every 50 years, we don't have the ice thickness that goes with it. We don't have the ice velocity with which the glacier is changing, surging, not surging. Is this in a steady state? This is not in a steady state.
So the first 6 months of this year were the hottest on record. Is the break-off of this particular ice mass more related to ocean temperatures, to air temperatures, or to both air and water temperatures?
All those factors that you mentioned play a role. The dominant factor for Petermann Glacier is the interaction of the ocean water underneath.
So you're saying the fact that it's been the warmest 6 months on record is really not a factor here compared that is significant compared to the ocean.
That's correct. That's correct.
Has that heat warmed the ocean?
We do not have enough data. We have been there in 2000, and this is the entire data record that there is. In 2003, we have been there collecting for one-day data. In 2007, we did it again. In 2009, we did it again. That's 3 days in 7 years. We didn't see substantial change that would cause us alarm.
So
but I'm not saying.
Are you saying that there is not? You don't measure the temperature of the water on an ongoing basis?
That's correct. We're not measuring temperature on an ongoing basis in Petermann Fjord. That's correct.
Why is that? We know we're having like the warmest waters off of Massachusetts and Maine and in July, and we advertise that, come and swim it. You can go out into the water in Maine right now in a way that we would just put our foot in when I was a little boy in Maine and just stand there while my father would just challenge us, his 3 sons, to come out and show that we could stay in that cold water. But now people are out in July in the water in Maine. It seems surprising to me that you're not measuring the temperature of the water.
If I could, I would, and perhaps that's what I would like to do, and that's what kind of in my testimony I was trying to emphasize, that we do need to measure ocean currents.
Well, let me ask you this. Are average water temperatures around the world going up?
I did a study in Baffin Bay, and at the surface...
But around the world, is it on average going up, the average temperature of the ocean?
In some regions it does, but there's also regions...
But on average, what I'm asking is, on average, is the world's oceans, are they warming? Dr. Alley, could you answer that question? Are the world's oceans warming?
Yes, they are. Heat averaged over a few years. Heat is going into the oceans. The oceans are warming. The database is good on this. There are important places that we worry about that are not yet monitored well. So the temperature under Petermann Glacier for a long time, the temperature around Antarctica close to the ice sheets is not monitored. The world ocean as a whole, the data show warming. And a fair amount of heat going into the ocean. And as Dr. Binshadler said, this in turn means that we are committed to more warming of the air, because as the ocean catches up, the air will warm a little more. There are places that we worry about a lot. The question of what will Greenland and Antarctica do in the next decades is linked in part to the heat in the ocean. And right now, the places really close to the ice and under the ice are not monitored well.
Can I ask you this? Okay, thank you.
If you were to ask us, in fact, Dr. Binshadler and I were at a meeting recently that was trying to provide some advice to the National Science Foundation on things that one might wish to measure, and both of us mentioned that knowing more about the ocean temperatures close to the ice sheets is very important.
Can I ask you this, Dr. Muenchow? You said earlier that when you talk to your students, that you focus more upon the water than on the air as a factor, and that you feel that you have an obligation to your students to focus upon the water to explain the phenomenon that are occurring. Do you think that it would be wise to actually measure the temperature of the water so that your students knew whether or not the temperature of the water was changing in order to determine whether or not the general warming trend in the ocean was playing a role around the Petermann?
I teach my students how to measure temperatures, how to measure salinity.
Excuse me?
And I teach my students how to measure temperatures,
but you
salinity,
do not measure
ocean currents.
You're saying this, your study itself does not, in fact, measure the temperature of the water. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, none of us has been funded.
No, I am not criticizing you. I'm just trying to stipulate the limitations of your study. On the one hand, you're saying you believe it's more water than air, but at the same time, you're saying that because of a lack of funding, that you do not have a capacity to measure any increases in the temperature of the water, even though we see a clear international trend towards the warming. And I think what we should try to do, perhaps, is to help you so that your study can reflect that, because right now it seems to be limited by an inability to be able to precisely measure the water temperature. We can measure the air temperature, of course, and that seems to be increasing. The polar region does warm more greatly, and if we could actually help you with your funding. Who is your funder, by the way?
That's the National Science Foundation,
the National
which has
Science
been
Foundation.
funding.
So this is a limitation, without question.
Yes.
That seems to me, at least as an amateur, I am a congressional expert as a oxymoron. You know, we're not really experts compared to scientists. I mean, it's like jumbo shrimp or Salt Lake City nightlife. I mean, there are no actual congressional experts, so we rely upon you. But there seems to be a pretty big gap here in terms of your ability to be able to speak, since Dr. Alley has made it quite clear that the ocean is warming.